with the disclaimer and be funny.
Hey!
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer.
Oh, God. Anyone that was just about ready to start watching this just said, okay, I'm out.
Right? Keys to Home, season 4, officially episode 1, because the first 2 were kind of, hey, what's been going on podcast. Talking about path to home buying. But first, Winter Storm Fern is knocking on our doors. Mark, what's going on down there and what's been happening this week for you?
Yeah, well, for me, everyone is in for the winter storm that's coming in. Everyone is in prep mode. But here's the irony of this. Why is it that when we are faced with an incoming storm or potentially catastrophic storm, we prepare for it, but when it comes to our finances, we react. We don't proactively, because I'm looking out right now, and the entire city. I mean, this is like weekend traffic. Everyone going to stores, everyone buying stuff off of the shelves, and in preparation for the storm. So, how ironic!
You know what I think it is, Mark?
What's that?
I think that it is because within recent memory, enough people have personal stories or from someone they directly knew that were impacted really negatively by a winter storm. And so they can say, I'm speaking from personal experience.
Yes.
When it is a financial or a budget situation, a catastrophe, most people aren't out there preaching it. You have been very forthcoming with what your situation was. But even though you've told how much you've gotten out of debt, we don't know the pain you were in during that time. We don't know the implications and the impact it was. And I think, that would be something for you to talk about. But why is it such a pain point? When you do your segment about getting out of debt and preparing for catastrophes, I honestly think that's why. There are not very many people left who have lived through the Great Depression or the 1990s when it was really bad. And everybody talks about 2008, but we came out of it so strong that it's different. Yeah. I think that's why.
Yeah, and I'll definitely dive in below the surface of, and the things that I went through. There's, and this is, a lot where I take my clients, below the surface with the kinds of questioning, getting to the heart of why we are not achieving what we're achieving if we're setting out to change things in our finances. There's a lot of pain and a lot of stories, that I went through over the 5.5 years. I'm not saying that mine is any different. Everyone's story is unique.
Yeah, for sure.
There.
And I think too, it's kind of like, okay, it's a bad snowstorm, but we were out driving in it. It's a bad budget. We're in bad finances, but we're limping through. Whereas what's going to happen is going to be full stop. Speaking of full stop, Lance, you were able to make some stops today and get your propane, but I don't know if that's what you want to talk about. It has been going on for the last week. What's been going on in your world?
I don't think either one of you follow me on Facebook, so I'm going to send you my post from earlier from yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but you don't see that?
Yeah. Why is it Happy Thanksgiving? Oh,
yeah, you're right. It says Midwest Snowstorm. There's a picture of me as a weatherman.
Oh, I didn't see that. That's hysterical.
Yeah, it says, meteorologists, mortgage pros, we both get blamed for things we don't control. Weather changes, rate change, and it spreads. The difference? I can stop the storm, but I can't stop the storm, but I can help you lock in before it hits. So
that's hysterical.
That's kind of where I was yesterday, Jennifer. I was trying to figure out how to get prepared for the storm personally, and yesterday was madness here, Mark. I've never seen Middle Tennessee like it was here yesterday. It was a rainy, overcast day, and there's a cruiser in Thompson Station. And when we got there, they were literally parking in the high school, the middle school next to it. It was just madness.
Oh
And I
my
went to
God.
Tractor
I know the one you're
Supply.
talking about. That's insane.
I went to Tractor Supply just to get some propane. 30 people
Yeah.
deep. There were people with like the 100-gallon propane tanks on wheelie carts, on dollies. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So anyway, it was starting to really bother me because I want to be prepared. I'm always preaching that in my military service. I'm like, and I wasn't. So this morning I got up at 6 and I went to U-Haul and there was nobody there. And I was the first person. I was done in 10 minutes. And it took me an hour to go through the freezing fog. I hope you don't have that, Mark, but we have freezing fog today.
You
Wow.
are cutting in and out just a teeny bit. When you dipped your head forward, it was really clear. U-Haul has propane?
Yes, all
Had
of
no
them.
clue. That's probably one of the best things coming out of this podcast. U-Haul has propane. I'm just teasing.
Yes, and if you go to their websites, it says how many gallons are in the tank. It's actually live, and they have a mobile app that you can reserve yourself somehow. Yeah.
Can I ask
Well,
a question really quick too? On a propane, if you're hooking up, like, because I'm sending my camp stove home with my daughter to my sons because they don't have a grill or anything else for alternative cooking. But my propane, my little green Coleman propanes have all disappeared. But I do have a couple of propane tanks that have propane in them. I don't know. I can't remember how long that connector. I can connect that big propane, the white propane that you use on the grill. I can connect that. Do I need an adapter or something? Or is it
Yeah,
same
they have an
size?
adapter you can buy on Amazon today. It's about $12. You can get a 5 foot or a 12 foot one, and plug right in. So yeah, the one that goes in a uh, grill is different than the one with that your little green tank.
It does have the same connector?
No, it doesn't. You have to get the
Okay,
adapter.
that's what I thought. All right. Well, I will tell them to do that. Okay. Well, I'm not going to talk about Winter Storm Fern as what's gone on this last week because I saw something. You better both hold on to your hats because I heard this and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Have you guys heard of fractional home ownership sales?
nope.
It is now on our MLS. And where our MLS is in multiple states.
What is it?
You are buying 10 to 50% of the home and you're renting the other 50% from the investor who owns it.
Oh my
Sounds
God.
completely safe and
Same reaction. Mark, I was like,
You know, you know what? That
because
just
home ownership is so expensive. This is a way for people to get into houses, and
no,
it's got.
what they're telling people is it's so expensive that this is your solution. I apologize for interrupting, but I think that's part of the problem of what's going on. Another freaking process would come up to sell people. And what's a great way to sell a process and a new idea? Sell scarcity. Go ahead.
It's ridiculous. There's a whole contract with it, and I haven't seen any of them. But you can't necessarily do the home improvements that you want to do. You have to get approval. When you go to sell it, you have to have, they're the other half of it. So you have to have that taken into consideration. I think there is a method for being able to buy out the other half. There is an equity share situation because you only own partial equity. If somebody came to me and said, and here's how it popped up. There was an agent who saw a house in a suburb of Nashville that should have been in the 500s and it was in the high twos. And they're like, what is this? And they saw that it says fractional ownership. And so if somebody came to me about that, I'm not going to not tell them to see it. Well, I'm talking about housing today. It's just like fair housing and searing. But what I would say is, okay, you're not buying the whole house. You're going to have this contract read over. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't advise you on it. You're going to need to do some heavy due diligence because this is a new concept. It may be completely worked out the kinks and it's fine, but I have some serious reservations, but it's up for you to do the due diligence. I'm your agent and I need to act on your instructions. But my thought to you is you need to do some serious due diligence on this. The other thing that I think is really interesting A week or two ago, Trump said something about not letting institutional buyers buy any more single family homes, right? Yesterday, that trigger got pulled. Now, I'm not going to go into the wherewithals and if he even has the ability to do it. But one of my questions when I first heard this on the weekend is this a way for an institutional investor to say, I don't own the door?
Of course it is.
Well, going back to the fractional ownership, I mean, that to me screams, when I have been backed into a corner and there's only one option, that's when I need to raise the flag and say, I haven't thought of everything. I need to, there's another option out there. And that's when you bring someone in. Because that makes it just screams all kinds
Red
of
flags
problems
everywhere, potential red flags. And here's the thing.
And
what do you do if you want to buy a home and you can't afford to live in the city that you're in?
You need to understand.
Evaluate the, and we'll talk about this too, the Venn diagram, the price, the location, or the size, or the amenities. Some of that has to give. Maybe you need to buy a condo. Maybe you need to have a longer commute. But something's got to change. But that's why we're talking about path to home ownership and what to watch out for. Okay.
It's sort of like this. If I want to live in a $12 million home, I'm not going to buy $100,000 of it. The fact of the matter is, the reality is, I don't have $12 million to buy the home. Okay.
But people are screaming at you right now saying, I don't have $100 to buy a $500,000 home.
Well, and that's where it is not about money. I really want to bring this up. This is not everything that we're talking, in my opinion, this has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with what are you driving towards, and what is your behavior? What are you willing to give up on your behavior in order to grow up financially?
Right.
Meaning,
there are reasons that there's underwriting guidelines. There's reasons that there's income to debt ratios. It's so that you don't lose the house you get into. So desperate people do desperate things.
Let me jump in on that for a second, Jennifer. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I know.
Just about the time when I get desperate is when I get stupid.
Yeah. And
that's I can go back to the beginning of our podcast. The pain of understanding the decisions that I made to build $323,000 of debt, all came to the surface as I was going through my 5.5 year journey. How stupid was I to XYZ? But just about the time that I'm desperate, that's about the time I become stupid.
Right. And I think about how Mary passes and like Mendoza's amazing stretch into the end zone on the CFP. But you know what? You don't see the years and years and years of practice that makes that Hail Mary and that stretch work. So when you're doing desperate things, you're trying to if I try and throw a Hail Mary pass, you know how far it's going? Because I'm not prepared to throw a Hail Mary pass. So these like jumping into these kind of desperation things without the appropriate underpinning is going to get you in trouble. Do we want to talk about the steps to home ownership? Like the path today?
Lance?
Yeah, all right. I can talk about it.
All right. I'm going to share this then, if that's okay with y'all. Let's see here.
Yeah.
And do it. All right, is that okay?
Yeah, look at that. Yeah.
Okay, so this is part of my buyer's presentation. How many times do we see on, especially Facebook, I want to buy a house, but I have no idea where to start? This is it. This is where you start. This is the path to home ownership with Jennifer Weithman in Tennessee, at least, okay? So we're going to meet, have a consultation, a buyer's orientation, as I call it. The purpose is to discover with our initial consultation and educate you on my proven method for getting people into homes. We'll do a case study, which is designing an effective strategy for purchasing for you in specific. And then we're going to review the agreements needed. There are 3 agreements when you buy a house. There's a contract between the seller and their listing agent. There's a contract between the seller and the buyer to purchase the home. And there's a contract between the buyer and their agent to do the services of finding a home, contracting on it, and getting it to close. That's the one we're going to be talking about a lot today, with some between the buyer and the seller as well. So, did I hit the thing twice? Okay, yeah. So, step 1, and we're going to break this down more. This is what I call the Candyland page, is you decide to become a homeowner. Step 2 and 3 are reversible, but you don't go farther until you've done both. Meet with me and let's get the buyer orientation done, or talk to Lance and get your pre-approval and his consultation. Once those are done, then we start analyzing and touring properties. We submit an offer. The offer gets accepted. We do our due diligence, and then we get closing day and you become a homeowner. We do not want to make this American Ninja Warrior on the loan process. Lance is going to go into more of this next week. So you don't want to leave out liabilities or change credit scores or jobs or anything else. Like I said, I'm going to let him go into that. But why do you get pre-approved? So you know what you can afford. I don't want you falling in love with something that you cannot attain, and then everything from there forward is compared to it. I also don't want you frustrated because you can't find the things that you need when you could have had better. So I'm going to pause for a minute. When Lance does his pre-approval, I'm going to use history major math. Maybe he says you're approved for $400,000, but you, with your budget, talking to Mark, really want to spend around $350,000. It's important that we know that you're approved to $400,000 and that your goal is $350,000, so that if we find something that you could stay in longer, it has this feature and it's maybe worth spending, $360,000, which is $9 or whatever dollars extra it is a month that Lance calculates. You can make that informed decision. Okay. That's your bullseye and your target. I also need to know with your pre-approval, what kind of loan are you getting? Are you getting a VA, a USDA, an FHA? We need to know the underwriting guidelines for the appraisal on that. So when we're looking at a house, we can go, oh, this is peeling paint. Oh, these windows don't raise. That could come to appraisal. Oh, this handrail, there's no handrail and there's more than 3 rises on a VA. So we need to, be aware that that might be a consideration that an appraiser requires. And then I need to know if you need seller concessions. Do you have enough money to cover your closing costs, or is that something I have to negotiate? I'm always going to try and negotiate it, but is it a requirement for you to be able to get the financing you need? And more importantly, we want your offer to be accepted by the seller. And any good list agent is going to call the lender on the offer received and say, have you actually seen papers, docs, and pulled credit? Again, Lance is going to go into that more. A pre-qualification's about as good as a piece of paper from McDonald's. So the seller needs to know that you can perform on the offer we're writing. So the next step, maybe, if I can get my screens to go forward, I can't. Oops, hold on. I went way forward. Is we start analyzing your needs and wants. I have a survey. It's about 6 pages long of check boxes. What do you want? If there's 2 of you buying the house, I say either get on the same page or both of you fill it out. Of all those things that you find, once you take into account finances and location and size, there's about 3 other features you usually get on a home. If you had $1 million, you're never going to get everything you want in a home, because as soon as you finish building it, you'd be like, oh, I should have done this. If you had 10 million in today's market, whatever. So then I'm going to send you listings that meet the requirements of a homes you're looking for on the broadest spectrum possible. Then I'll also be networking for coming soons and off markets among the agents I know and the agents at Benchmark. We'll be looking for sale by owners. I've done probably, I think, a half dozen to a dozen of those for clients over the years. We can do reverse prospecting. If you're like, I really need to be in this neighborhood or this whatever, I will send letters to homeowners in that area and say, I have a ready, willing, and able buyer who can put in a fair market offer. Are you interested in selling on your timeline? I've gotten another half dozen to dozen clients in houses that way. And then, like I said, 1,600 top Benchmark agents and what they've got on the marketing upcoming and their networks of connections. Once we narrow down the homes you like, we maybe go see 4 or 5. Now, I want to stop here for a minute. There are some agents who say, I'm only showing you 5 homes. Pick your pick. What I say is I don't want to waste time. I'm not going to be a home tour guide forever, right? But I understand that you think that you might need X, Y, and Z, but when we get out and see it in person, you actually are like, I don't want that. And this thing that I didn't think I wanted would actually work. So we can refine. But once we find the house you want, we're going to make the offer. Pause for instruction. The scrape to the certificate of occupancy is usually 6 to 9 months. The agent sitting in the house, the model home, works for the builder, not you, the buyer. So always call me before visiting new construction, development in person, or website, because I can represent you on new construction. And there are things that I can actually negotiate for you at new construction. Some people think that there aren't. So let me see something. There was something. Okay. With the making an offer, we have roles for a synopsis on this. Your role is to get pre-approved, be prepared emotionally and mentally to make the offer. Sometimes I've had spouses who are selling a house and one really doesn't want to move and the other does, or they know they need to financially or space-wise or whatever else. You have to have your earnest money ready. I'll go into that in any detail, but it's earnest money. You need to be able to trust my expertise and advice because we're doing teamwork. I will be ready to negotiate the best offer on your behalf. When we find the home you want to put an offer in, I'm going to call the list agent. I'm going to find out what the seller needs in addition to money so that we can build rapport with that agent and we can get the best offer that the seller is going to want to take, especially in case there is another offer coming in. We do have multiple offer situations, and I'll leverage my knowledge and expertise to get your offer accepted. That's why you hire me, is my brains and my ability to get what you need done. So once you're under contract, we have the due diligence process. Binding agreement date is what I call the start of the stopwatch. So if our offer is accepted today, then tomorrow is day 1. And it'll say in the contract, your inspection period is done 10 days after binding agreement date. So if today was binding agreement date, 10 days from tomorrow, you have to have your inspections completed. You can do it before that. So same with your earnest money being due. So due inspections, general home inspection, wood destroying insect inspection, radon, and septic are the most common. There are some others we'll talk about and some that I think are trending and probably going to become pretty necessary. Then we negotiate repairs. Did we waive repairs? Have we said we're not going to ask for anything, but then we find, fungal growth that we're like, hey, seller, we don't want to break contract, but this is a situation you're probably going to have to fix for anyone. So we're going to have to break contract unless you decide that you want to fix that. Did we do it in lieu of? Instead of having the seller replace the GFIs and the cracked shower tile, are we just going to accept a certain lump sum in closing costs, prepaids, etc., and we'll take care of that from our cash liquidity after close? Then you arrange for movers. I always tell my people to arrange to have your truck unpacked the day after closing. And I try and close on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so we're not up against a weekend, because the house becomes yours when the funding reaches the seller's title company or bank account and all signatures have been received. So if you're closing at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, there's a good chance you're going to get funding done by 3 or 4 that day, but that's pretty late to start on moving a truck. unloading a truck. So think about doing it the next day. And then we'll also do a final walkthrough. Usually it's at 5 or 6 o'clock the day before closing. So what is earnest money that I mentioned earlier? And trust money used to be called trust money. So trust me as your buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that I am in earnest about buying your home and performing on this contract. Here is some money on the table to show that. It is a cashed check or wire that is held in escrow until closing or break of contract under a contingency or otherwise. One of the things I asked during the buyer orientation is, do you have liquidity somewhere of usually 1% of the purchase price of your home? And if it's in like a money market or a credit union or somewhere that may take a minute to get it, before we actually start home shopping, your job is to go out and call your your financial institution and find out how many days it takes to get it to you. Because we're going to put in the contract 3 to 5 days, usually binding agreement to have that earnest money in. But if your lending institution needs 5 business days, I'm going to put 7 and call the list agent and say, hey, we're putting 7, not because we want to lag, but because the institution it's coming from, we've already checked. That shows we're being serious about our offer, and it resolves a qualm of why is this so long. So it is a surety to the seller that you intend to abide by the purchase and sale agreement you have executed. It goes to your closing costs at close. If it's more than what's needed because you've gotten seller closing costs, it returns to your account. If it terminates, the earnest money is distributed per the contract. And what does that mean? If we go into the house and we find out that it has a ton more repair issues than we're willing to do and terminate within the timelines of the contract, then that earnest money is going to return to the buyer. If we can't get financing, it's going to return to the buyer if that's what the contract is saying. If the appraisal comes in low and we can't bring the extra and the seller's not willing, then it's going to terminate under appraisal contingency. Those are the main contingencies. Get your house sold that you need to sell to buy it. But Mark, you just go in and you're like, I changed my mind. I'm walking away. You're probably going to lose your earnest money. And at that point, I'm probably going to say, you might want to call a lawyer before you make a decision here. If you hear me say you might want to call a lawyer, that means you're probably doing something counter to the contract. And I can't tell you not to do it, but you need to know the ramifications of doing it. All right. So what are the costs that you might need to outlay prior to closing? You're going to need a home inspection. Usually that's somewhere in the $500 to $700 range. You're going to need to do a termite or AKA a wood destroying insect inspection. I strongly advise doing a radon inspection now. Radon has become much more prevalent in Tennessee since the 2010 floods changed like the underground fissures that can get to the surface. And it's the number one cause of cancer for non-smokers. If you live in other areas of the country, that might not be something you need to do. In Texas, there's going to be a survey on this. It's a requirement in Texas to do a survey. It's not a requirement here. Then if you're buying a home that's on a septic system, I would advise you to do a septic inspection. I'm going to actually advise you to pump it. Because then if you bought the house, which you're most likely buying it, it's empty. Plus you can see better into the tank once it's been pumped. I'm not going to go into the nastiness of that. And then you have an appraisal. Sometimes that's paid at close, but often it's a cost that you have to pay ahead of time. It's very rare that it's paid at close. The ones that I think are coming up that are going to be more common and necessary are sewer scopes. I'm seeing much more tree roots in lines. We're seeing more dude wipes down the drains. Don't put dude wipes down the drains.
We did that to make sure we were listening.
Yeah. If it's a pool, you probably want a pool inspection for the pool and the pump. If it's a well, we can have a well water, like the inspected and the pump inspected. a structural engineer may be necessary. And like I said, perhaps a surveyor. All right. So here's costs of that are at closing and explanation of these. They vary based on the purchase price, the lender, the county, the insurance company, and some are going to be able to be covered with seller closing cost concessions. So sometimes the appraisal, like I said, your homeowner's insurance, Lance, what is the percent that they put on there? I can't think right now. Is it the first quarter or is it the whole first year? Or what do they usually assess?
Homeowners insurance is the first year.
Yeah, so they take the whole first year, they put it in escrow, unless you're not escrowing it. But if you're doing FHA and some of these other governments, you're going to be escrowing it. So know that. HOA transfer fee.
Just make sure that the first year is taken in current, because if there's a claim, then there's a risk of it not being insured.
Yeah, exactly. Because the lender, and why do you have to have homeowner's insurance? If you have a mortgage, because they have a coverage in that amount of the house that they want to make sure if the roof rips off, you're going to rebuild it and not lose their asset. Homeowners association transfer is a one-time fee when you're moving into a neighborhood with a homeowners association. They assess it, usually goes to general funds. Usually it's under $1,000, except in some of the neighborhoods, like especially some of the big senior communities with a lot of amenities, those can be over $3,000. So who's paying for that? And do we know what it is? That's part of what the sellers are supposed to disclose. Then your prorated homeowners association dues, they're going to take a portion of those. Prorated property taxes. The seller is responsible for the days that they've lived in the house. So if you're closing on January 15th, the seller is responsible for 15 days and you're responsible for 350 days. Home warranty, if you've chosen to get one of those. I'm going to have my cousin on to talk about home warranties because there's a whole bunch out there and she does sell one up in Ohio, but she can sell it anywhere. And she researched them pretty heavily. She's in that area of Ohio. And so there's a lot of people who are on limited resources, and that's a good way for them sometimes to be able to replace an HVAC or a water heater or a stove. So I think I'm going to bring her on as a guest. Title insurance. A lot of times in our area, in most counties, the seller will agree to pay the title search and a standard title policy. We've had title agents on here before, and you know that an enhanced policy is becoming very important. So you may need to pay the difference of that. Then there's the lender fee. Lance can go into that next week. I do not charge a broker administration fee. I'm charged $195 for every transaction I close by my broker. If I use a contract to close person, somewhere in the area of $500 for contract to close. A lot of agents will pass that on as a fee. I don't. I consider it part of my cost of doing business. And then the buyer broker compensation fee that we have negotiated. So whatever our buyer's agency agreement was, if the seller has agreed to pay it, then that might not be an out-of-pocket thing. It might be a partial thing, or it might be that you're fully paying it. What do you guys know about fair housing and redlining? And you might know more because I've had this with you before.
No, I know a lot about redlining.
Not a whole lot.
They used to draw lines on the map, right, Lance, in red, and you could not lend within these areas. But then fair housing came in and they said, we're not going to allow people to discriminate or the opposite of discriminate, favor. Sorry, it's been a long day already. Based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, gender or identity and sexual orientation are not part of the federal, and they are actually not in Tennessee, but they are in the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics. That's why there is the star there. Some states do put those under their fair housing. Those are not the ones that get people in trouble. These are the ones that get people in trouble. I can't discriminate or favor based on crime, schools, or family status. Mark wants to know, is this a safe area? Well, I don't know. What do you consider safe? If I'm carrying, I might consider everything safe for me. My daughter, who's 5'2" and a redhead, might consider everything safe for her because she's a little spitfire. But I might not consider some areas safe for her because she's a 5'2" female. My 5'11" son might be a different area of safety. That's for you to do your due diligence on. I can't tell you to or not to go into an area. Are the schools here good? Oh my gosh. Agents aren't allowed to talk to that, but that's something you want to know. Go to greatschools.org. Look at a school you know where you are. Compare the schools that you don't know there on greatschools.org to the schools you do know that are good and bad, and make your decision. And this is busted people on Ring doorbells. Agents in Middle Tennessee. Are there a lot of kids in this neighborhood? I want little Susie to be able to walk next door. Well, I don't know. We can look at some demographics. I can show you where to find census records, but also using my eyeballs, I see a whole lot of trampolines and basketball hoops, and I've passed 5 kids just on this block. So let's do the math. But it might be that you don't want to live around a bunch of kids. Mark, you're a single dude and you want to go down party on Broadway every weekend, and you don't want basketball and pickup hockey on the cul-de-sac in front of your house at 8 a.m. when you're trying to sleep. But whatever that you choose, that's for you to choose and not for me to steer or direct. I love this next one because it was actually a question on my broker exam, my practice. So Tony's showing houses to a family that has a toddler who is blind. And he shows them a house at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. The parents saw a home for sale a block away on a busier street that met their specifications, and they asked him, "Why didn't you show us that home?" And he said he didn't think it would be safe for their child. Is that or is that not breaking fair housing? Tony's trying to do him a solid, but he broke fair housing. Family status, disability. So when I set up my buyer's alerts, I'm going to send you all the houses that meet your requirements. And I tell you, text me the address of the home you want to see and the best time to see it. And we'll set up the showing. All right, let's see here. I think we're almost done. Maybe. I can't flip the screen again. There we go. So when you work with me, you get a professional realtor with a positive reputation who's a committed ally, negotiator on your behalf, and the knowledge of an active top producing agent and broker. So that's the steps to home ownership. Oops, I don't know where we are. We're over here. So that's the steps to home ownership in Tennessee with me at the current market. So the next time you see somebody on Facebook, how do I buy a house? What's the steps? Jump over and share this. If you want to have a consultation directly with me, 615-207-2652. Call me, text me, as Kim Possible used to say, call me, beat me if you want to reach me. So, and then next week, Lance, you're going to break down some of the things I went into. Why are you getting pre-approved? What do you need? What do we this? And then Mark, you're going to talk about upcoming career changes. I think you're going to do 2 episodes, one on career coaching and getting ready for like if you have a job change, planned or unplanned, and then also budgeting to make sure you can stay in a house and get into a house. But I know we're only at 38. We did good. But did you guys have any questions or comments? Yeah.
Well, I'm a lot said. We talked about, I was going to put an asterisk next to your insurance and a couple of your slides. Like that. Pull your slides up and go backwards. I'm going to add your slides. Can you go back a couple? Yep. Can you go back a couple on those? A little bit further. A little further.
Oh, no, you want the cost page. This one?
Okay. Yeah. Yep. So measure on the purchase price. And so this is interesting. When you talk about fractional ownership, I was looking through this as we talked. And fractional ownership. I'm a gas, and I've been in the business for 25 years, and I can say on this that maybe I don't agree with some of the things that you as a realtor, some of the things that you've been handcuffed with, some of the things you're allowed to talk about, some of the things that you're not allowed to talk with.
Yep.
The only record says that this is not directed at you. You know that. I don't agree with those things. I am tired as a citizen of being handcuffed while having other things shoved down my throat that is now acceptable. And now we're going to get into, fractional ownership. We're going to reinforce that you can't buy, young people. It's just too hard. You can't buy, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to provide you with a vehicle of home ownership called fractional. And what happens is this is fooled under the guise of, this is a great way to help people. Really, it's just another way to bind people and handcuff people, which is something I went back to a second ago. You look at these things like appraisal, home ownership, HOA, dues, taxes, home warranty. When you have fractional ownership, everybody's going to play. It's a great thing. And I'm sure it'll work out. I looked it up while we are talking. Fannie and Freddie want nothing to do with it. You know why?
Surprise.
Because when you come to it and they have to liquidate this property and someone doesn't pay, there's no way for the lender. But wait, who really is the lender anymore?
The institutional owner of the other half is going to be the lender on this.
Bingo. That's the three people on the left side of this presentation, which are the American taxpayers. Because all institutional levels of lending, with rare exception of private equity, which is still people with faces and hands and arms and feet and legs that can talk, some combination of those things.
I mean, when I saw the fractional home ownership, Lance, I thought, because my dad had an insurance agency for years, and y'all know I was licensed for a bit. What are you doing? Are you the homeowner's insurance? Are you renter's insurance? How does that even work?
Are you the investor's insurance? Who's a real investor? And the thing is that in America, when we borrow money, Mark, people don't lend money to each other anymore. Like if some cousins called and said, "Hey, Mark, I'm going to buy a house from you. Will you lend the money to me? Mark, I want you to sell my house." You could do owner financing. Probably going to steer away from it, right? Because it's a little bit of a headache to keep in account with all those things. And we become a country where we have all this lending. It's what I do for a living and I have for 25 years. But it's an institution that they have an interest in it as well. And when you get to the word fractional, we're not a NASCAR team. This is a whole industry. It's I'm sorry, I've gone off the rails.
It's crazy, I know. Well, and you talk about owner financing. There have been situations where I've had owners who have owned a home free and clear, and they've said, yes, I'll consider owner financing. And then buyers get all excited. But usually you got to put 20 or 25% down for owner financing. And you still have to make payments. And if you don't make the payments, then you're going to have a forfeit of the house, just like you would with a regular lender. So again, don't put the cart before the horse. If you can't get traditional financing, there are guide rails in traditional financing that, yes, can be frustrated when you're like, I just want to buy a house. And they're saying, slow down, walk before you run. These are sometimes in place for you to save you from not losing the house and the money that you do put into it. Is it perfect? For God's sake, no. It's the federal government and guidelines for this. So no, it's not perfect.
By the way, fractional ownership is allowed, and we do it every day with down payment assistance. Down payment assistance is, ready for the word? You ready for this? Ready, Mark? Guess who's allowed to do this fractional ownership?
The federal government.
Yes, please.
Huh?
Government-sponsored entities.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
it's just,
it's a great thing for people to get into home ownership, but I have a feeling the things that Jennifer, this property she was telling us about, was not a starter home.
No. And the other thing too, sometimes I have people who are like, well, aren't there any rent to own options? And they're like, realtors in Tennessee are not allowed to involve themselves in rent to own contracts. We have to have a lawyer, because what people don't understand, history major math, I'm buying a house for $300,000 and I'm going to pay you a payment of $2,000 a month. 1,500 of it is my rent, my privilege of living in the home that I don't own. 500 of it goes towards the purchase price of the home. It's a type of owner financing. But then what happens if I decide the refrigerator dies and I decide I want this refrigerator in it? Then I own that. Or the door busts and I want to get this door, but the owner is only going to, and I'm like, and then it turns out I get transferred 3 years into this deal. How do I know how much of that equity of that house is my equity, not my equity, or somebody passes away and their heirs have to deal with this? It's not the best way to do things. Now, I have in the past had clients who worked with some of the companies that will come in and buy the home and you rent it from them. And at any point you can pull the trigger and purchase the home. A lot of times that happens when someone is starting a new job or they have a job that's heavily bonus or commission based. And this company that's renting them the home for up to 5 years says, I see that you're going to be able to purchase a home or have a loan to buy this. And then they can move into the house and get established and not have to move later. But they have up to 5 years to decide if they want to buy it, not buy it. The rent is laid out. First year is this, second year is this, third year is this. The purchase price, if you buy it in the first year, it's this. If you buy it in the second year, it's this. If you buy it in the third year, it's this. It's all laid out. But the money for the purchase is going to be more than you would have paid in the first year. But by the time you get to maybe the second or third year, it might even out for you. There are times when it works. They're not around as much as they were back in like 15, 16, and 17. But there's a lot of ways to get things done. But if it's not one of the traditional methods, you really have to slow down and analyze, is this good for me? And there might be a scenario where it is. Just like the people who will buy your home for cash now, no repairs, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes there's reasons for those, but you're usually going to get 10% less than what you would on the open market. And if you're willing to get 10% less, I can probably list your house for 3 to 5% under the quote unquote fair market value and get it sold just as quickly and just as efficiently. And you're still getting then 5 to 7% of your equity retention. We'll do sales one day.
Well, we are approaching the 48-minute mark.
Yep.
I think we've had a great presentation about what the steps are to buying a home. I think we've covered a lot of ground in making that step, and I just ultimately with everything that that we've talked about, I think what anyone listening to this, in my mind, is really stop and ask yourself if you're having to go through in all of these little things in order. Maybe that's the sign that you should say, okay, I'm not yet quite ready. And especially when it comes to the fractional ownership, and then certainly the experts on this, the people on this call, on this podcast, can help guide you in the right direction. So,
and even if that is guiding you to someone like a lawyer who can break this down for you.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I see a lot of red flags that I would have to have somebody look into and determine for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's the important part. It's just red flag after red flag. I mean, so great presentation. I know we're approaching the 49-minute mark here. So
see ya. Until next week. Oh, is it sleeting where you are already?
Mark, is that what I hear?
Yeah, I'm already starting to see the trucks putting brine down on the roads.
We're gonna die!
Yeah. It's starting. It's not good. I'm a little more concerned about this than what I had started out with.
We'll end the call right now so you can get out. Call's ending right now.